Blog Talk Radio.
You are listening to the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Welcome to Earth Sky People Radio. Living in harmony with Mother Earth and awakening to an intergalactic society. With your host, Victoria Vives, founder of Reiki Wellbeing and co-founder of the Earth Sky People Movement. Hello, this is Earth Sky People Radio with your host, your friend, your family, Victoria Vives. You can find me at victoriavives.com, and today is Tuesday, August 26, 2014, and even though it's Tuesday, August 26, it's still the now. So even if you would be listening to this show in the archives, we can all tune into the now so that we are together sharing this energetic space. Even if we are in different places all around the world, you can still hear me because we are sharing the same frequency. Something brought you to this space today. So if you are not driving, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and become more and more aware of our energetic connection, focusing on your heart, and start breathing through your heart center. And you may be able to feel the magnetic energy that connects us, you and I and everybody tuning in with us in the now. So take a moment to send light and love to each person listening, and also send love to the earth, strengthening that web of light and love and healing that connects us all. And staying aware of our connection, take a deep cleansing breath and slowly open your eyes. Okay, we are together in Earth Sky People Radio, and Earth is representing our connection with Mother Earth and nature, and Sky is representing spirituality and life beyond the Earth, extraterrestrial life, extra-dimensional life. Last week we have our wonderful friend Jim Robertson sharing on how to live in harmony with nature and get into a feeling that everywhere is home and everyone is family. And today we have family here. This is my shamanic family, my beautiful shamanic mentor, GRETCHEN CRILLY MCKAY, and we will be talking about healing your lineage, also how to find a shamanic practitioner that you can trust, what are the star nations, and so much more. Gretchen's website is ancestralwisdom.com. And now we welcome GRETCHEN CRILLY MCKAY. Hi, Gretchen. How are you?
I'm well, Victoria. It's good to be here.
Oh, so wonderful. I'm so excited to have you here in the show because, I can talk. Yeah, I can talk to you. I can talk about you to my students and friends, but the opportunity to be with you here so that you can share directly, this is such a precious opportunity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for those listening today, we have the interview, and then also we will have a Q&A section. So just hold tight there, and you can call at 347-215-8586 and press the number 1 to ask your question. And make sure to call soon because then I can see who has been waiting the most, and I go for that number. Okay, so the first thing I really would like to hear from you is, what brought you to shamanism?
It was a long time ago. I think I know I had always been on a spiritual path. But a little more than 20 years ago, there was a series of crises in my family, and I just couldn't do one more therapy session, or, I couldn't do it. Nothing had worked. And so I was looking for healing. And it just so happened that actually she had been my therapist in previous years, but she had begun to study shamanism. And she said, we can explore some healing through this modality. And she explained that it was a way that I could receive direct revelation. It was a way to find out information about my soul's purpose. I said, sure, sounds better than talk therapy. Sounds great. So so it was my own spiritual journey. I was looking for a personal empowerment. I'd felt like I'd lost all my power. I was sad. There was so much shadow and challenge in my life. And it just opened the doors. Those healing sessions that she did with me changed my life. And then she introduced me to the Foundation for Shamanic Studies and classes by Michael Harner. And so I began taking those. And I did it all for myself. I mean, it was just, it made sense to me. I learned to journey, and then I learned about my team of helping spirits. I didn't feel alone anymore. And I got answers for both practical and spiritual things. So I loved it. And I just kept exploring, and I took everything I could. Until about 10 years later, well, it wasn't even 10 years later. It was probably about 5 years later. Now I look back at it, and I was receiving the calling. So in shamanism, the shamanic path, you can just study shamanism. You can learn how to journey. Anybody can do that. You can find how to access information, but some of us are called to this work. It is our path. It is the work that we are to do in the world. It's the path we are to follow. And that began happening about 5 years later. And I had been a teacher, and I met my African mentor. I took off to Africa. I was initiated into a tradition, an African tradition, and I quit my teaching career, and the rest is history. So that's the 5-minute version.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Like, really, Spirit has a path for us, and sometimes we don't realize.
Yeah.
Of course, all your background in teaching, I can imagine how helpful it is that you can share about shamanism.
Yeah, because this, the people that I work with, whether they're students or clients, I see my role as a facilitator of them finding their personal power, because so many of us have lost it. And I've had wonderful teachers here in the U.S. as well. I've studied a lot with Sandra Ingerman and Tom Cowan and others that have continued to inspire me, and especially because of their integrity, So Africa's a long ways away. So it's been nice to have teachers and mentors myself that I could keep studying with. But this is a lifelong path. It's not about completing a course of study. That is, and then going, okay, I got the certificate. Now I'll hang up a shingle. It's a path. It's a path of heart, and it requires surrender. And the nice thing is that most of the time, it's filled with lots of joy. Sometimes we have big lessons, all of us, to learn, and there is a surrendering piece and shadow work and all of that. But I can't imagine anything more more fulfilling than this work that I get to do now. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned about integrity, and that is such a big theme because normally when we think about the spiritual work, we think everybody's going to be ethical and have integrity,
Yeah.
you know, and you know my story of how hard it was in the beginning to find a shamanic teacher until finally you appeared, and I feel that you really always keep me on my feet, like really keeping very much in integrity, and I so much appreciate that. I really think that. And yes,
yeah,
so
thank you. It's essential. It's essential, and I think you mentioned, you know, places you can find shamanic practitioners, and a lot of people come to me after they've looked on Sandra Ingerman's site, and I think one of the reasons that Sandra's she's known for her integrity. I mean, I've been a student of hers for a long time, and what I always appreciate about her is she walks her talk, and she's always growing, and she's honest, and she's always there for those of us who have worked with her, and I appreciate that. So I'm grateful. I have found amazing teachers in integrity all the way along, but you have to be discerning. Because, there's a lot of people that will hang up, you know, they'll start advertising, and they'll call themselves shamans. That's actually the first red flag. When someone says on their website or, you know, says to you, I'm a shaman. That's the first red flag, because I still call myself a shamanic practitioner. I have plenty of clients who might refer to me as shaman to their friends, but that is not how I ever refer to myself. I was initiated into a traditional healing practice of the Sangoma in southern Africa, and so I do use that term. But you'll never, you know this, huh? You'll never hear me call myself a shaman. And I always tell my students, you may not call yourself that. Now, when we're all together, do we understand that this is shamanic practice? Yes, but we're always students. A true shaman living in an indigenous culture has probably been identified with gifts at a very young age, sometimes even pre-birth, and they are mentored their entire life. They serve as an apprentice to the traditional healer of the village, and in due time they may take over their mentor's practice. This is the West, so it works differently. But humility, surrender, and integrity are the key factors.
Yeah. And you know, something that now that you mentioned about kind of the apprenticeship that is done in other places, I really appreciate that you offer this training that is a commitment of 2 years, because that keeps straight, like saying, okay, you're really committed. Are you really sure that you're committed? And it creates an environment. I feel a connection with my shamanic sisters that I wouldn't have otherwise. And with you and with Donna.
Yeah, there's an intimacy that grows in that. And it creates a foundation that you can reach back to, because we do need each other. You know, it's there, and the initiations that you go through during that time, and your own trials. I mean, you sign up for a 2-year program, and Spirit goes, aha! And now the work begins. And you will be pushed to surrender over and over and over again. Whether I write it into the curriculum or not, it's going to happen. Yeah, right?
Yeah, it has to come with a warning. Okay, be ready for this. It's quite a journey.
Beware.
Yeah. But it's beautiful journey for sure.
Yeah.
So, Can everyone be a shamanic practitioner?
So that's a really interesting question. Anyone that's interested may practice shamanism. But when I use the term shamanic practitioner, I'll define that as far as what I see it. That means for me someone that is a student of shamanism, is committed to the path, doesn't just get a bunch of techniques and buy a whole bunch of tools on eBay or through a local store, but really is a committed student of shamanism. And so a shamanic practitioner, whether they go through a program like mine, like a 2-year program, or through another, long advanced training, most of us, I think, at some point reach out to study with other well-known teachers or perhaps go to an indigenous culture. Those are that's a shamanic practitioner. It means someone that is a student, has apprenticed in some way, and is using those gifts in integrity to be of service to Mother Earth and to humanity, or to four-leggeds, to animals. So that's a shamanic practitioner. Anyone, though, can learn how to journey. Anyone can learn how to have direct access. There seems to be this very interesting trend, though, right now of, I get phone calls all the time. So-and-so told me I'm a shaman, and I know I am because blah, 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 blah. And do you get those too? Yeah. And I gently and kindly usually say, well, that's lovely. But, before you decide that's who you are, you need to, and then I go through basically what I've just shared. You need to have a mentor. Even my mentor, one of my African mentors who I adore is from Zimbabwe. His name is Mandaza. Mandaza, I've heard him, because I've sat, and worked with him before when he's been here. I've heard him say to someone who's come to him, yes, you have gifts, but you must follow your mentor around. You must, if they were one of my students, he'll say to them, you must be with her all the time. You must learn in that way. So, this whole idea, there has to be a difference between learning some techniques that help you live your life more fully in relationship with the spiritual realm and your guides, and being dedicated to this. Because if you are called to be a shamanic practitioner, the path of the shaman, you will be taken, first of all, you'll be called to it through a near death, through some kind of really emotional upheaval. Maybe your entire childhood has been chaotic and crazy, and you've gone in search of healing, and this ends up calling you. It's the first thing that happens. Ultimately, if there's been an illness or something, doctors will have said, I can't help you. Depression is another one. Nobody can help you with medication. And finally, and this is in indigenous cultures it happens too, finally they start branching out to traditional healers and find that, yes, the spirits are calling you. Wow. But you still have a choice. You still have a choice. Of course, I don't know what happens if you don't choose it, but you still have a choice.
I don't know about that, about the choice. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. Seriously, I feel so emotional when you share that, because I feel that some people may be kind of lost with all these things happening to them, like, near-death experiences, and thinking they're crazy and not finding a solution. And, if we can provide this information so that people that maybe is in that situation can search further and know that maybe in our society we see certain people as crazy, but it doesn't mean that they...
Right.
It's just that they're seeing beyond what most people may be seeing. So thank you for sharing that.
Right.
It's so
yeah.
powerful.
And the only other thing I'd like to add is that shamanism and shamanic healing is not a quick fix. I also get people who want to come see me one time and have everything go away. Well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
That's not going to happen. I might. Now, I love it when people call me and they've been working with maybe a therapist and a doctor, and they've been working on a lot of things with their own emotional, physical, spiritual growth. And now maybe they're calling me because they've heard about soul retrieval. And in that case, yes, soul retrieval or some other shamanic healing can certainly shift their vibration and their energetic field and bring back life force so that they can continue doing this work of healing. But we always pray with ease and grace. If your body went from chaos to exactly the opposite in 24 hours, your cellular structure, your DNA couldn't handle it. So it's a process and not a quick fix.
Right.
No pills.
Right. And right. And I feel that there is always a new layer, that even if we have been working on our healing for years and years, there is always a new layer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The truth behind the truth behind the truth.
Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, if you could share the difference between the shamanism in different lineages and cultures, that would be
okay. Well, I can share what I know, what I have personal experience with, or what, The word shaman actually has been lifted from the Tuvan shamans. And the Tuvans have had in like Siberia, have had probably one of the longest histories that has been known, among people. And so that's where the term originates from. The medicine people within the Native American culture, they had different names. And each tribe, a lot of the medicine people have disappeared. Some of them are thriving. I don't know a lot about that, but what's interesting is I'm having clients come to me for ancestral and personal healing who are coming from Native American lineages. And it's beautiful to see that their ancestors are wanting them to wake up and reclaim the wisdom that is almost gone. So I know Spirit is doing something. The African tradition that I come from is from Southern Africa. The term used is Sangoma, but I'm from a Zulu lineage of the Sangoma. But even among the Zulus, the training or Twasa period to become a Sangoma has slight variations. Some of the lineage I come from, we dance our ancestors. There's trance dancing, and in other lineages there isn't. It's not the trance dancing. They will certainly dance and sing, but so there's Kosa. There's all these different types of Sangomas within Southern Africa, which I find fascinating in and of itself. I thought we were all the same, and of course we're not. Depends on where the group comes from. In Africa and all over the world, all shamans and all shamanic practices use the herbs of the land. The herbs is your medicinal pharmacopoeia. That's, in the African lineage, there are those who are experts called Nyangas that work with herbs. That's their expertise. It'd be like a naturopath, say, in our culture, or perhaps like an acupuncturist, or that uses herbs, Chinese herbalism. And then there are sangomas who also are mediums, and it's the shamanic piece. So an Inyanga may not be a sangoma, but a sangoma is usually also an Inyanga. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So that's a very basic description. But Peru, certainly, the shamans of Peru use the plant medicine. They use ritual and ceremony. Most of the traditions have methods of using plants to help extract energies from the body that no longer belong there or that are interfering with a person's health and well-being. And they might bring back their life force, so it's the same there. That's the thread. I've actually been just taking an online course that is an overview of curanderismo, and that's the traditional healing of Mexico. And it's been exciting to watch this because it's like Africa. It's just that the pharmacopoeia, the medicinal plants, I know from here. Many of them are in my garden. So it's fun to see how these traditional healing methods are practiced in some cases identical ways. And I always think, where did that come from? Well, the spirits taught the first medicine people directly. And it's been passed on, but it's taught all over the world. Isn't that amazing?
It is absolutely fascinating, seriously.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
And would you explain about cross-cultural shamanism as well?
I'm sorry, what?
Cross-cultural, the idea of cross-cultural shamanism.
Schools of shamanism?
Cross-cultural.
Oh, cross-cultural. Okay. Well, I didn't. You can see, it didn't register. So cross-cultural schools of shamanism. I think that's interesting. So, do you mean here in the United States?
Yes.
Okay. So usually, the schools that are in integrity, who are authentic, whoever is teaching the school has studied. I mean, if they're teaching a Peruvian shamanism, they have trained, they have mentors, either in Peru or Ecuador or someplace. That is where they keep going back for training. And they bring those traditions here. I want to say right now that the most misused wisdom from the Peruvian and South American tradition is ayahuasca. This is a sacred plant. You do not mess with madre. And people that just want to have that high or that experience, like LSD or something else, they are opening themselves up for trouble because that is a powerful, she is her own spirit. And, so some of these traditions that are sacred can be exploited here in the U.S. Some people have begun to exploit them in Peru as well, Cross-culturally, I think, for me, I don't teach or use something I call African shamanism. I think that actually like what Michael Harner and what Sandra Ingerman have done in that, you take the wisdom from these traditional cultures. And for many of us, we've studied in many different traditions over the years. And since we are Americans, we tend to be cross-cultural anyway. I do have a concern. I've actually recently saw some shamanic certificate programs with online studies. Dear God, I first of all, anybody who offers a certificate at the end of a shamanic study and says you are now certified to be a shaman or whatever, I have a real problem. I have an ethical problem with that one, because this is a path of learning forever, and it really is. There's wisdom that can be shared online or by reading, but the real wisdom can only be shared within a community where you're held in sacred space and you learn to do things in a safe and sacred way. So, So I'm seeing more of that, more of the, long distance, want to become a shaman thing.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know about that one. I did.
Yeah, I just saw one the other day. I was blown away. And the teacher is an anthropologist, and he studied, but he offered a certificate at the end of it, and I thought, oh dear.
I think it's just that we are so used to, Reiki has certificate and crystal healing has certificate, and they say, so it's just a lack of information here in, out of the tribe. We don't really have information, so thank you for sharing that, because people that maybe is thinking about exploring shamanism maybe for themselves or that are feeling the calling, it is so important that they know this, because there is so many things that I saw, not online, but in person certification. And people ask me, I have just some drumming circles and then they work. And they ask me, will I receive certification? And I'm like, no.
You can hear my voice, can't you?
And I totally know that they are asking from the bottom of their hearts. It's not that they any bad. It's just lack of information in the U.S.
Well, it's the American way. We give certificates for everything, and certificates are our sign that we've completed things. And so I do understand it from that perspective. And you bring up something important. It's like Reiki traditionally has, you go through trainings and you do have certification, and that is a wonderful tool that lots of people can use. And Reiki certainly comes into someone who is being initiated into shamanism and as a shamanic practitioner. Reiki becomes a very powerful tool in healing sessions. But there's a difference, because in shamanism, we literally are merging with our high spirits who are our guides. They do the healing. And it's not that doesn't happen for Reiki, but there is a difference. This is, Reiki is one of the many tools that can be used within a shamanic healing session.
Absolutely. For me, as you know, I explore different things like Reiki, crystal healing, EFT, hypnotherapy, everything. But I feel that I'm complete with that, but I don't feel I'm complete with shamanism. I feel I'm starting with shamanism.
Always something new.
Right. After 3 years, in my own initiations that I have in my life, it feels like I have no idea what is waiting for me in this path. It is so,
This is a path of service, and then above, we've mentioned it a couple times, but above everything else, it is, we are caretakers of the earth, of Mother Earth. That is our goal. That is who we are. It is an earth-based practice. So if you don't have a strong connection with Mother Earth, you will certainly be guided to do that along the road, because that's really why we're here. Right?
And that's what happened to me, as you know.
Exactly.
it has been like really amazing because really I was getting so much into teaching at home for my classes and computers because I'm doing all my websites and videos and music and all of that. And suddenly I felt so disconnected from the earth. And now I'm in the other way. I'm going into the intentional community. I really want to be there. Mother Earth is certainly calling me, and I have the amazing fortune that my husband is helping me come back to the earth. So I know that is guided by spirit. They are really putting everything into place so that I don't get distracted.
Right. And it's been gently, though. I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. Yeah. But our work is with Mother Earth. Our work is with Mother Earth.
Oh, how beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things that you offer that really transformed my life is healing our ancestral lineage. And I feel that if each of us take responsibility of healing our ancestral lineage, transforming 7 generations forward and 7 generations back, we really transform the world. So would you share more about this idea and the work that you do?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll begin saying this by mentioning that prior to meeting Baba PH, who became my mentor in Swaziland, I had read and felt connected to everything about African history. I mean, I never understood that, but I mean, I've been to Africa 7 times. I've just now for the first time with Ireland, which is, you know, a biological place. But I was completely disconnected from my own ancestry, and as a teacher, I, you know, in teaching history, I had been so appalled by the colonials' behavior, you know, the European colonial behavior throughout the world, you know, to the indigenous people. And so I rejected my Irish, Nordic, Germanic heritage. I mean, I ignored it. And I learned everything there was to learn about Africa.
Wow.
And when I met Baba PH, he said I was chosen in my family to heal the lineage. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? And he said, well, there were traditional healers on both sides of your family way back. But everybody forgot. Nobody respects the ancestors. And he said he'd been here in the U.S. for a while, and he'd been traveling all over, and he said, I've met so many traditional healers, what he would call traditional healers, you know, energy workers, amazing practitioners, traditional healers. But he said, they've all lost their ancestors. How can anything be okay if you've lost your ancestors? So I recognize now that my ancestors yearned for me to be reconnected to this same wisdom that Africa was inviting me into. My own ancestors had that wisdom long ago, but it was lost, which is true for many Americans. And my ancestors pushed me. I started to say invited. I was invited, but, you know, they pushed too. And I went willingly. I went 2 summers to Africa and spent them with PH, doing rituals, using herbs and steaming and prayer and dancing and all sorts of ceremony to heal my lineage, to reconnect my lineage.
Wow.
It took me a while when I came back to understand just how powerful that was on many on many layers. One, it was about my own family, and in me doing my work without saying a thing to the rest of my family, there's been healing. Continues to be healing, because there are patterns of behavior and triggers in our family that are in our DNA. But when I heal the past, the present, and the future, and that's what I've always remembered. So as I began to see my own work here, my own shamanic practice unfold, it isn't that the only work I do is with ancestors, but I throw the bones, which is a tradition from Southern Africa, and I have ancestors in it. And so ancestors show up for each person. And what I finally realized was, I'm supposed to help these people reconnect. And so that's the the one-on-one, and I might be guided to prescribe a ritual for them to reconnect. I sometimes will do family soul retrievals, which is just like a soul retrieval, but I'm guided to ask my guiding spirits to take me to a place of my client's ancestors, and I watch this incredible collective healing going on. Because when we heal our own lineage, when we make peace, and sometimes it's really hard for a person, say, that's been abused. It's hard for them to make peace with their mother or their father or the grandfather or, some relative. But usually I can help somebody go back before that to a time and a space when there was balance, before the woundings. And we work from that place. And I don't think I've ever had anyone that couldn't go there. And so slowly, one gets to know their own lineage. Slowly there's forgiveness. Slowly. Wow. And then miracles happen. And every time, I spoke with someone today that, we talked about her ancestors just a week ago. And there's one side of her family she knows nothing about. And all of a sudden it's Armenian. And all of a sudden this week she ran into people that are Armenian. She ran into somebody that, it was like all these ancestors said, we're finally acknowledged. And so she can acknowledge her lineage. And I really, truly believe that's one of the things that brings us into oneness.
Right.
You don't just have your biological parents behind you and your grandparents. If you kept connecting, you'd have thousands of people behind you. Wow. And sometimes your lineage is a mess. It is. There's been a lot of wounding. We don't have to go reclaim the trauma. We don't have to know where it started. We start with ourselves. We start with loving and forgiveness. We connect slowly, and healing happens. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We will be opening for questions and answers soon. And once again, the phone number that you can call to is 347-215-8586. And you can also press number 1 just to make sure that I know that you want to ask a question. Okay, so once again, the phone number for questions is 347-215-8586. And, with what you shared, Gretchen, I really want to just appreciate once again how my connection with Africa has been not very strong when I was growing up, because all my family I grew up with was European, very different to me, and Africa wasn't something that was very appreciated maybe in Spain. So I felt it was amazing to be able to find a teacher, a mentor for shamanism that helped me heal my connection with my African side.
Yeah.
And that has been a blessing in my life. And it's so interesting that you are blonde with blue eyes, and yet, you have helped me so much in my African side.
I know.
Like,
the Africans say that too.
Oh my goodness.
They say you're African, but you don't look African. Yeah.
Exactly. It's about your ancestors and your lineage, even though your image is different, and that's the beauty of it. I also have ancestors that are German, and I certainly have to work more on that part because I didn't. But I'm so happy that my African aspect, I feel that I really connected thanks to my time with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and just imagine the healing that is continuing to happen, as you embrace that and you get comfortable with it. And it didn't happen overnight, did it? But each time it's like it goes from tolerating the idea to embracing, the truth of it. Yeah.
So you know what? I'm going to take a call because there is somebody here that has been for a while, so we can continue with some questions later.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So the phone number is 813 is the area code, so please 813 be ready because you are coming in for asking your question. Hello?
Yeah, hi, it's Jorge Noda. Hi, Victoria and your guest.
Hey, Jorge, how are you? Good hearing from you.
My pleasure. Very, very well. I got a quick question. I have a big attraction to, I shouldn't say attraction, I even feel their presence sometimes, of American Indians, and like I have, how do you call it, a dream catcher in my wall, and I want to know if this is anything related to something. I know it's a spiritual, obviously, but what can she tell me about that, and also about my star family?
Okay, so when we're attracted to cultures that say may not be our own, there is usually some kind of, it can be a past life. It can, and we can also, the Africans talk about the ancestors in a very generic term. For them, the ancestors include biological ancestors, ancestors of the land, maybe wisdom keepers from other lineages that want to speak to us, that want to have connections with us, and star nations, ascended masters. Everybody is lumped into ancestors. So what we were talking about just before was biological. But I work with African ancestors as well, and as Victoria said, I'm blonde and blue-eyed. But I know I've had many lives in Africa. So there's a draw, and so honor that attraction. From a shamanic perspective, with what I refer to as star nations, and there are different terms for this, but in almost every indigenous culture there is mythology about star nations or star beings seeding the earth. And most of them, have a belief in that reality, whether it's Irish or Mayan or African. In Africa, we call the star nations vibration the Abalodzi. It's a very high vibration. And we see them as helpers, for the transitions, particularly that we're making now. I sometimes have this image, for me when I'm in journeys, the beings that come to me that are of this vibration, what I call star nations, are usually translucent. Maybe other people call them angels. I wonder that sometimes. Is this what an image that some people translated into that? I will only work with those beings of star nations who are of a very high vibration and are here to help with the transition. And we're also, in shamanism, part of the reason I love this work so much is it's earth-based and we are grounded. Because in order to really bring through the healing wisdom of the star nations and of our helping spirits, only way to really bring that healing through is if you have deep roots in Mother Earth and you are grounded, you know. Exactly. So, yeah. Does that answer it?
I do a lot of meditation, and I consider myself very much grounded. But I see them in the meditative state. Like when you go to deep meditation, I see the alien faces. I feel the how would I say it? The presence of them. And that's why, I've been having like 2 or 3 nights constantly. I've been having, I don't know if this has anything to do with this or not, but I've been having dreams of snakes, everything about snakes. So I don't know if it's maybe a fear that I have of snakes or if it's something spiritual.
Well, snakes are sacred in most cultures. Snakes are circular. They're about death and rebirth. They're also about shedding the old skin. Even DNA, 2 snakes, 2 serpents. So snake is a very powerful healer. What I suggest to students and clients that I'm working with is get to know your spirit guides. It's one of the reasons I ended up loving journeying was that I found my first teachers, my first power animals, we call them, who I had many journeys with them, and I grew to really trust them. I trusted their advice. And so if in a journey something new would show up, I would ask one of my trusted allies, is this someone I can trust? I have very clear boundaries about what spirits want, who's going to work with me and who isn't. Because not all spirits are benevolent.
Exactly.
And in meditation or in journeying, other things can come to you. So it is about questioning, say in your meditation, if you have a guide that you really trust, then that question can go out. Is this a safe thing? Is this for my highest good? Or is it not? And if it's not, you tell whatever form has come to go away.
Right. Now, but how can you get in contact with your your ascended master, have that kind of communication that you have your ascended masters that are helping you? And this is where I'm kind of lost on that. I haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, and that's the journeying. There's actually a really good, easy-to-read book that gives you sort of the lay of the land. And it's written by Sandra Ingerman, and it's called Shamanic Journeying, A Beginner's Guide. I love journeying as a tool. And most people that meditate are able to journey pretty easily as well. But there is a structure to this that helps you gradually grow and meet your lower world power animals or your upper world ascended master teachers. And it gives you a foundation to work from. That's a great question. And, I don't know where you live, but if you could check Sandra Ingerman's website, Shamanic Journey it's shamanicteachers.com, and look for your state and your city and see if there's anyone there. If you live close to like Victoria, to me or something, you can check and see if someone's teaching journeying.
Yeah, I live in Tampa, Florida, so I'm a little bit far away from California.
But I know there's practitioners in Florida, okay?
Oh, they are.
Yeah, I know there are. Yeah, probably you don't want to drive on over to one of our houses.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a pleasure, but just a little bit too far.
A little too far. Okay.
Okay.
But I really appreciate your advice. Yeah. It's like usual. It's a beautiful show, and I'm always trying to listen to it. I learn a lot from it. So, again, congratulations on a great show.
Oh, thank you
so much.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
And, well, I'm sorry. Okay, so once again, the phone number to call in for questions is 347-215-8586, and also I know some of you sent me an email or a request through message, so I will be asking those questions in a moment. And if you call for questions, just press the number 1 so that I know that you want to ask a question. Okay, so now I have another question. Actually, one of the big ones that I had, he asked it, which was about the stagnation.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, that was awesome. Good timing.
See, the spirits took care of that.
Yeah. So one other big thing I feel it would be to, how would you recommend for people that want to receive a shamanic session or maybe know if this would be something that is good for them? What would you recommend so that they know, first of all, if it is something that is good for them at the moment, and also how to find the right person for them?
Right. Well, first, if what's interesting is a lot of people they will have a sense that, like a dream or somebody mentions something and they know they want to look into shamanic healing. They want to look into shamanism or to have a session with someone. If you have a friend that's seen someone that they really liked and they really trusted, that's certainly a way.
Wow, yeah.
If, again, shamanicteachers.com, Sandra Ingerman has worked with all of the practitioners on there. They've been in trainings with her. So I know that there is a high ethical standard. I mean, we have regular reunions. We go over things. So it's that's a good resource. However, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to resonate with you. So if you don't if you want to, send a few people some emails, people that you find. Send people emails. See what their response is. Give someone a call. Do they call you back? And if they do, are they willing to share with you a little bit and listen? Don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm really in awe sometimes of people who call me or email me. They set up an appointment and they don't know me. And I really take that, I have great respect for that because I know that they're just trusting their intuition, and I don't want to let them down. Well, that's what you want a practitioner to feel like. You want someone to be kind and available.
Beautiful. And it is true that makes a big difference. And I think that I talk about this often, how some teachers like you, like Sandra, are really there. Are really there to speak. But at the same time, what I really love is that you are not babysitting us. And I think that is so important.
Right. Oh, no.
Because that truly takes off the power from us. If you are babysitting us all the time, it's like then we are depending on you. And I feel that there is a process in which sometimes as a collective, maybe we have been babysitted by, religion or even government, things like that. And then we free up from that. And sometimes we engage with a guru that becomes a new babysitter. We don't need that.
And you can give up your power. Yeah, in fact, that's a really good point. At least understand, if you're looking for a shamanic practitioner, at least understand or be willing to say you're willing to do the work. And you can't just go and receive and not be willing to participate, because traditional healing of all kinds is not about it just being done to you or for you. It is an interactive process. And maybe the interaction is simply you opening to receiving a healing. But ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read the question that I have here from somebody that contacted me. And okay, so her question is that she was reading about soul retrieval, and she had like a really strong feeling, like she resonated a lot with soul retrieval, and she was reading about how this has to be done through a shamanic practitioner. So how can she know if this is beneficial for her?
Well, the first clue is that there was a strong connection, and you know, your intuition is kicked in, and you're saying, "Wow, this feels like something I need." But again, it goes back to that you can reach out to find a shamanic practitioner. Those of us who have trained with Sandra Ingerman do soul retrieval basically in the same way as her book, and as we learned in her training, and it's the same way I teach my students. Different cultures do have different ways of bringing soul essence back home. Elena Avila wrote a book called Woman Who Glows in the Dark, and she was a curandera. She passed away a few years ago, but I read a chapter in her book about soul retrieval, and she included a ceremony. Part of it was a Mexican ceremony, you know, from her training as a curandera. She was also a therapist, so she included homework that was really from that practice. So she combined things. Most of all, when someone contacts me and says, I've read about soul retrieval, I think I want a soul retrieval, I always say, and what have you been doing for your healing right now? You know, what are you doing? Maybe they've seen a therapist. Maybe they've, you know, been doing some kind of meditation practice or some kind of opening practice. But if they've done nothing, I usually say soul retrieval is not your first step.
Wow.
You know, however, having said that, I have worked with several people who were sent to me from someone else that they were working with, a therapist or a homeopath, something like that. They were sent to me, and there, especially the therapists that have sent me people, they've come to a place where the therapy that they do, even if it's EMDR and other kinds of interactive therapies, nothing's working. They can't get past the trauma. And at that point, they'll contact me, and that person will come here. We'll do a session, and I will do soul retrieval. And then they continue with their therapist, and things really pick up. I've had some amazing confirmations of that from those situations. If it's someone that's not working with anyone, I may be told when they come to me that this person really can't go on any further. If they will agree to work with me past this session, then yes, I will do soul retrieval at the first session. But that's just the beginning of healing, and it restores life force. It restores your essence so that you can go on and do your work.
Right.
But it's, again, as I've said before, it's not the whole solution to everything. And we always ask the spirits to bring back any soul essence that's willing to come back at this time for the purpose of healing. And that may be, this person may have had a very traumatic life, but what Spirit will bring back is maybe a collective of childhood, or maybe childhood and another point. That doesn't mean there wouldn't be room for more soul retrieval, but it's too much to be done all at once. However, you shouldn't do, between sessions, it should be at least 6 months and preferably a year, because you want that to be absorbed back into your being. You want to nurture that part of your essence that's come home.
Right. And that's so important to understand that it is just, the session is just the beginning of something that they have seen at home. Because, as you were saying, it's not just a one pill and everything is resolved.
Right, right. And we may find other things, There may be spiritual viruses, that have to be pulled from the body. There may be a series of preparation things that the practitioner is told by their helping spirits. These things must happen first. In an indigenous culture, you don't just go tell the healer what they're going to do for you. You go, they have a session with you. You may be given a list of things to go purchase and bring back for a healing ritual.
Wow.
You may be instructed to stay at the traditional healer's home for several days so that they can work with you. Yeah, so much different.
Oh, yeah, and we never know, right? When we start a session, it's like, let's see what the spirits say. Maybe they say so retrieval, but maybe not. So it's certainly not like, okay, I want a 30-minute Reiki session.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Right, because the practitioner is not the one guiding the show. Right. The practitioners, trusted high spirits, helping spirits, are the ones guiding the session. So what both of you thought might happen could turn around completely, which is kind of the fun of it. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Every time that I start a session, it's like, hopefully something occurs. I don't know. Because
I know.
We're not the ones doing it, so we have no idea. We just surrender to it and let's see what occurs.
And see what happens. And it's usually magical for both of you. Yeah.
Yes, it's always very healing for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start closing up, and I would like to see if you have any workshops coming up or anything that you would like to share with our listeners.
I have a shamanic journeying class on September 14th. The introduction is from 11 to 1, and then the second part is called Beyond the Basics, and that's for anyone that knows how to journey, and that's from 2 to 4. And this is the last one for this year, so if anybody wants to come and explore journeying, you can find this on my website, ancestralwisdom.com, and it's under training. October 4th, I don't actually have this one on the website right now, but I'm doing a workshop with a dear friend of mine that lives here in Laguna, and it's called Journey into Oneness, and we'll be using both of our practices. We have different practices, different shamanic practices, but we'll be exploring what this means. It's a personal journey, and we hope to take people really deeply into that through ritual and journeying and movement and nature. So that's October 4th. And you
awesome.
can contact me if you're interested in that. And then the last workshop for the year is Healing the Ancestral Lineage, and that is my favorite yearly workshop, and that's the first Saturday of November, which I believe is the 2nd. So,
and certainly,
that one's on the workshop.
Yeah, and certainly, it's always magical. It's such a journey to join these workshops, and it's like we together go out of this ordinary reality and have the opportunity for something so beautiful and healing for us. And, there is somebody here that just came in for a question. Should we take it?
Sure.
Okay. So 814, area code, be ready to answer.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Hi.
So what would be your question?
Actually, my question is literally, what can I do, or what needs to be done spiritually for me to cut negative family ties, I would say, from the lineage that has caused repetitive negative things within the family, and I don't want to be tied to them anymore. I mean, I know that the money situation that I'm going through, struggles and things have to do with things that have occurred within the family circle within, and years and years and years. And this is something that happened in a past life in my family. And I would like for myself to be broke free of it. I really am tired of this dark cloud around me, and to be able to move forward with my life, to be able to complete my dreams. And, I feel very held back by a lot of things. I take steps forward, but then I'm pushed back. And a lot of it is, with the family and their impact, and I really want to be rid of that energy. It is not healthy at all.
Well, the first thing I would say to you, and I say this to anyone that comes to me too, is that I don't know if you're familiar with the practice of Ho'oponopono and Dr. Hugh Lin, and it's an ancient Hawaiian practice of forgiveness.
Yes, I have done that.
But one of the things that he talks about is we are 100% responsible for our own reactions and behaviors and memories in all situations. Now, so why I'm saying this is whatever is showing up in any of our lives, there is healing that needs to be done. Doesn't even mean that you have to fix anything. And I understand what you're saying about cutting cords and patterns. Not a simple thing. It's not about just cutting cords. It's not just about doing Ho'oponopono. Clearly, your soul has made a choice to come in this time to maybe make corrections and heal the past. I say this because it's been my calling for my whole life. And our master teachers are not those who love us and who make us feel safe. Our master teachers are the ones who invite us to look, just like you're saying, for answers in non-traditional places. So what I would say to you is, wherever you live, find someone, find a mentor, find someone you can work with, because this is not a simple process, but it's a deep process. And I guarantee you that on the other side of it, being able to release subconscious limiting beliefs and patterns that have held your family down and yourself through generations, to be able to reveal those and to release them and transform them is an incredible blessing.
Okay.
I don't have a simple exercise for you to do.
Okay.
There's a very good book written by Bruce Lipton called Biology of Belief, and he is an epigeneticist. It's a quantum biologist, but it's a beautiful way of explaining how the traumas are held in our DNA.
Yes.
So say many generations ago, somebody did really bad things. It's held in our DNA. It shows up in patterns over and over and over again. The key is that if it can be absorbed into our DNA, then it can also be released. So the trick is, prayerfully, how do I find these patterns? How do I find these limiting beliefs? And now what do I do? What I do with people is I work with ritual. Mm-hmm. We work in nature, might use herbs, might use steaming, so.
Do you do distant, like if somebody was not able to work one-on-one, face-to-face with you? Are you able I
certainly do. I can always throw the bones for someone, and I actually do have clients that don't live around here, and I can help. Sometimes it's giving them a ritual to do to begin the process. Sometimes it's a long-distance healing. Okay, but yeah, I can.
I'm very interested. I don't have the internet up right now, and would like to get information on how to contact you so that I can get this taken care of.
Okay, so the best way to contact me would be through email.
Okay.
And that's GC, M as in mother, C, KAY, 2, at mac.com. So that's GC, M as in McKay, C, KAY, 2, at mac.com.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Is there, I don't know, is there any, do you also, I'm sorry to keep asking you these questions, but do you also help with, illnesses and stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. There's sometimes an illness is connected to ancestral traumas.
Yes, I'm fully aware of this. I guess I'm just nervous asking the questions. I know what I need to do. I know what I'm trying to get at. It's just how to ask the questions is where I'm fumbling. So
why don't you, you've got my email, and why don't you sit with it? And probably the best thing we could do is just one-on-one. We'll set up a session. Could either be 30 minutes or an hour. You can look on my website and see if that will work for you and resonate. Do you like, what you see? You should always pay attention to that. Do you resonate with me? And if you trust me, we can see. We can do a little work together to see if I can help you and if that feels right.
Okay.
You always have a choice.
Real quick.
It's ancestralwisdom.com. ANCESTRALWISDOM.com.
All right. Thank you so very much. I appreciate
blessings.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling. Mm-hmm. Bye. Many blessings to you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, wonderful. I have so many more questions that I want to ask, but we're going to start wrapping up. Yeah, because more and more things come to mind, It's like, this and that, but, let's leave it for now.
That's why you make such a good radio hostess, see?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was such a wonderful experience. I felt so emotional through the interview, and it's just so special to have you here and also be able to share this with so many people, because, you know, one thing, once again, is telling them myself, but being able to talk with you and hearing you sharing this is just so special for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so that was all for this interview. And actually, what I would like today to finish the show is to share one of my songs that actually came to me when I was driving to my training with you, Gretchen. Did I tell you about this?
I think you did.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of these initiations in when we were going to have this ceremony at Pine Manor.
Yes.
It was that day. I was like totally at the edge. It was a very challenging situation, and this song came to me, so I would like to share that song. I think it's going to be the perfect song to complete this beautiful show. And next week, I will have a wonderful guest, which is Karen Newman. And Karen Newman is one of the hosts at the Enlightenment Evolution Network, which is this show, Earth Sky People, is part of that network. So Karen Newman will be here with us, so check all the details at victoriavives.com/radio. And I'm going to share some announcements for the Enlightenment Evolution Network, because each day we have a show. So tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Rob Gaffier. He is the creator of the Enlightenment Evolution Network, and he will be hosting the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, and his guest is going to be John Kali, who channels Chief Joseph. And actually, John Kali appears in the Tuning In movie, so check that out. And on Thursday at 9 p.m. EST, we have Philip Malika hosting Consciousness Evolution Hour, all things metaphysical from the perspective of the fifth dimension. On Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we have the Earth Experience with Kalina Angel, exploring soul's expansion through our human experiences on Earth. And Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time is Odyssey of Ascension with Roxanne Sunhart. So this is 2 hours of mind-bending ascension downloads. She will be channeling us every Saturday. And on Sunday, we have About Oneness with my guest for the next week, who is Karen Newman. So this will be the show on Sunday, and About Oneness will be, let me see, I have the information here. It's a weekly radio program focusing on celebrating the ongoing consciousness awakening of our planet. Okay, and that is on Sunday. And then on Monday, we have Daniel Scranton with Heart to Heart Radio. And this will be at 4, I'm not sure because he changed the time. I think it's at 6:30 p.m. PST. And he will be having guests focusing on the shift, ETs, channeling, energy work, and so much more. And finally, we get back to Tuesday, which is today, and we have at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Soulfulpreneur. So this is all about spirituality, but also the aspect of abundance, prosperity, and wealth and business. And then at 6 p.m. PST, we will have once again Earth Sky People with yours truly, Victoria Vives, and my guest, Karen Newman. So have a wonderful, amazing time until we talk again. And remember to continue breathing through your heart, keeping some time for yourself and for connecting with the earth. So important. Okay, know that I love you, and I leave you with wonderful life. Bye.
Oh, isn't it a wonderful